I'm Lynn Julian. I'm a survivor. I'm sure by now you know we don't like the word victim. Everybody keeps calling us victims, but the victims can't be with us today, and they'd be here to speak for themselves if they could. I just wanted to vent a little bit about the first time we heard his voice today. Nobody really realized that we didn't know what he sounded like after 2 years. And after we heard it, we wish we hadn't, because the things he had to say were sort of shocking. He talked at first about Allah and this being the month of forgiveness, implying that we should all forgive him. And the last thing we wanted to hear was about Allah and why he did this in the first place and changed all our lives forever. And then he went on to give a sort of Oscar-type speech thanking the judge and thanking the jury and thanking his legal team and those who couldn't be here and his family for testifying and making, and I quote, making my life easy for the past 2 years. Well, our lives have been anything but easy, and our lives will never be the same again. I live a block from the finish line, and my neighborhood has changed forever. He threw in an apology to the survivors that seemed insincere and just thrown in because he was supposed to, and then ended again with Allah talking about leniency, implying that we should now be lenient to him because Allah says so. And I just was unaware that he would get up and just say whatever he wanted, and that's the law. And I regret having ever wanted to hear him speak, because what he said showed no remorse, no regret, and no empathy for what he's done to our lives. Lynn Julian, Lynnjulian.
Where were you standing when the bombs went off?
I live a block from the finish line, so I was at the first explosion. And I have a traumatic brain injury, permanent hearing loss in both ears, and a back injury, and the worst of all is post-traumatic stress. Because
do you think you should get the death penalty or life?
I don't think that either of those things are going to change anything for any of us. It's never going to bring back our old lives. I lived in perhaps a false bubble of security, that I would go to all the Boston events just like so many people and never feel unsafe, never worry. And now we feel like we're the police. We are the judge and jury of everyone around us, grading their safety level and how much threat they might cause us at any given time, just riding the T. And I'm never going to look at Boston or the world the same again. And none of us are, because they took so much more than innocent people's lives. They took our sense of security. They took our sense of safety. We can never leave our homes again and just take a walk without wondering and judging everybody else that walks by us.
Why do you think he spoke? Why do you think he spoke today?
So,
Can you step back from the microphone?
So I would like to speak. My name is Scott Weisberg. I'm one of the survivors as well, and I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I am a family physician, and I specifically came up today to tell my story. I, as a family physician, have hidden and invisible injuries, which most of the media are not aware of. Those injuries for me are bilateral hearing loss, for which I wear hearing aids. I've been wearing them since August of 2013. I also have a mild traumatic brain injury. In addition, have PTSD as well. And part of today for me was to explain what it's been like to live with for the last 2 years, these injuries. To all of you, I look completely normal. But inside, I have significant injuries that I've been living with and going through. And as a physician, and having to go through the struggles of getting diagnosed and having to convince medical professionals what it's like to have injuries and to seek the proper care. Part of my treatment has been to make the public aware and also to be an advocate for other survivors. So one of my goals and missions ever since this since I've been diagnosed, which took me 16 months to get my diagnosis, is to be an advocate for other survivors and for other future events where if somebody has a hearing loss or a brain injury, where do they go? How do they get care? So that they can be treated effectively right from the beginning. And that is one of my main purposes for being here today in this courtroom and coming from Alabama.
Did you think of Mr. Tsarnaev's speech? What did you think of Mr. Tsarnaev's statement?
So I was surprised that he spoke. I think most of the survivors were, that he spoke today. He said that he was remorseful. I find that hard to believe since I've come to a lot of the trial and never really saw that at all from him. It really does not change anything for me because what he took from me, I'm never going to be able to regain, nor what he took from my family, nor from any of us as well. I think he spoke because people were sort of expecting that from him. Since everybody during the trial was commenting on him not making any comments and his lack of remorse and no facial expression. So this was that one last moment for him to kind of just put things aside.
Do you think it was sincere?
I don't think it was genuine, but that he will say otherwise, and that's not going to change my impression of him or what he did to us. Basically, as was said by people this morning, is what this tragedy has done is it has made us stronger as a survivor community, and more importantly, it is made us more resilient, and we are still alive. There's 4 people that aren't, but the rest of us are, and we as a community are going to be stronger, and we're going to continue to heal through this. And the main thing for me and speaking was that we will not be forgotten.
You talked in the court about how your life had been completely ruined, and in a split second, the after effect of that is completely destroyed your life as you knew it. What did it mean to you to be able to stand up in court and say that, and at least if he wasn't looking at you, he at least heard you? What did that mean to you?
To me, being able to finally express what I've been holding in for 2 years was very powerful. It gave me the opportunity to let not only the media, the defense, the judge, even the jurors have an opportunity to hear from a survivor that basically has these hidden and invisible injuries that when you see me on the street, I look completely normal. If I pull out of my hearing aids, then you'll see that I wear hearing aids. The brain injury you can't see. It's not something that's visible. The PTSD, you're not going to see that. So for me, it was the idea of actually being able to physically express all those feelings that I've been dealing with for 2 years and verbally being able to express it to the public.
You said you're a marathon. Have you run a marathon since Boston?
I have. I came back in 2014, ran the 2014 marathon with the 415 group, which was a group of survivors. And I did it again this past year. And after the 2014, I started running again marathons like I did before.
A sincere apology would have been nice. A simple, believable apology would have been great. And there was nothing simple about what he said, and there was nothing sincere. One thing that we have done, you were talking about being proactive and moving forward. Scott and I are both on the board of the Massachusetts Resiliency Center. So we are taking positive steps to unite the community and what we call our marathon family to continue to grow and continue to heal long after this trial is over.
The defense said that they had tried to come to a resolution on this issue back in October, and that this thing could have proceeded. That is to say, they would have pleaded guilty at that time and included a letter of apology. pain that you experience throughout this time?
You know what? Today was actually the first day that I learned of that. I was not aware of that before today, and I know that the government had a good reason for going to trial, so I can't fully answer your question. I would like to make my own statement. My name is Henry Borgard. Last name is spelled B-O-R-G-A-R-D. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, specifically Downers Grove, and I was living out here, attending Suffolk University at the time of the marathon, and I wasn't trying to be there. I wasn't trying to spectate. I didn't have any friends running. I was just walking home from work, and I was a victim of circumstance. But that being said, I've made a host of friends within our survivor community. They are going to be lifelong friends. They are people that I continually rely on and lean on. And I really want to thank a couple of people, or groups I should say. First is my family, specifically my mother, who, as you heard in my victim impact statement today, received a phone call from me just 3 minutes after the explosions went off, and I scared her half to death. So I'm sorry, Mom. And thank you for your support. And I also want to thank War Dogs of Chicago, which their organization gifted me my service dog. Her name's Friday. She is a PTSD service dog, and they generously donated her to me after hearing about my story. I want to thank the people that have worked tirelessly to get this whole trial to a resolution, to capture Dzhokhar Tsarnaev during the manhunt. And I also want to give a sincere thank you to the prosecution staff, because they have been absolutely phenomenal. The Attorney General's office has been wonderful to all of the survivors. In regards to Dzhokhar Tsarnaev's statement, my personal opinion is a little bit different than my two compadres here. I was actually really happy that he made the statement. As I said in my personal impact statement, I have forgiven him. I have come to a place of peace, and I genuinely hope that he does as well. And for me to hear him say that he's sorry, that is enough for me. And I hope, because I still do have faith in humanity, including in him, I hope that his words were genuine. I hope that they were heartfelt. I hope that they were as honest as the statements that you heard today in court from the victims and the survivors. I obviously have no way of knowing that, but I'm going to take it on faith that what he said was genuine. There was a little bit of rhetoric in there. I agree with what you said, absolutely. Some of it was hard to hear, but I was really profoundly affected, really deeply moved that he did do that, because whether we'd like to acknowledge it or not, his statement, like ours, takes courage, because the entire world is watching us right now. And the fact that he made a statement which he didn't have to do gives him a little bit of credit in my book. So I will answer any questions that you have.
So you got the death penalty or life sentence?
Personally, I am against the death penalty. I do not believe that that someone should be punished for killing people by killing that person. That doesn't make sense to me. I would have rather seen him get a life sentence. That being said, I am happy that justice has been served.
Obviously, you will speak again as you speak. You get the impression whether he was listening to you or not.
I made the mistake of looking over at him while I was giving my statement, and he was looking right at me, which was a little disconcerting, and I had to resort to reading directly off of my little script that I had in front of me after that. I wasn't expecting that, being that he hasn't had any real reaction in court other than the one with his aunt.
So you made eye contact with him?
Yes.
What did that feel like?
He's a human being. I don't know to what extent my forgiveness extends, but what I do know is that I believe in second chances. And when I made eye contact with him, it wasn't like looking in the face of a criminal. It was like looking in the face of a boy, because I'm going to be 24 in a couple days. Happy birthday. And he's younger than me, and that's been something that's really been a hang-up for me to reconcile the fact that I was at the second explosion, to reconcile the fact that the boy who planted that bomb that blew up in front of me is younger than I am. So that's something that's been very difficult to process.
Okay, guys, last question. Is there anything for your victim impact statements that Lynn or you, Scott, could say because we couldn't have our cameras in the courtroom? Henry shared a little bit about what he said on the podium. Is there anything that you would like the public to know about what you said in there?
I just feel like the bubble is burst. Perhaps we didn't know we lived in a bubble before. Perhaps we took our security and our sense of safety for granted every time we went out to Fenway Park or TD Garden or just to Boston Common. And now we take nothing for granted. Every time we go out, we are in fight or flight. We are hyper aware of everything going on around us, and it's both embarrassing and exhausting.
Agreed.
And so basically in my speech, basically as a family physician, which is what I am as a marathon runner that day, I emphasized the idea that my injuries that I suffered and continue to are invisible and hidden, what it's like to live with those, and the challenges of basically presenting myself as like one of you, and what's really going on the inside on a day-to-day basis, and how this is going to be a lifelong process of relearning and reinventing myself and refiguring out my new identity, and not only mine, but as a survivor community. And that's my main mission, is so that we're not forgotten because you can't see those injuries, and that we need resources, that we're going to need to continue to seek medical care, professional opinions. And if the one good can come out of this from this event is that there's more public recognition for how to diagnose sudden hearing loss, tinnitus, mild traumatic brain injury, PTSD, and how to get that care right away so that people don't have to search and struggle to where to turn to get that medical care and expertise.
We hope our work with the Massachusetts Resiliency Center will continue to promote awareness and education.
And that Resiliency Center is the mainstay for the survivor community going forward.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, the U.S. Attorney's on her way down. She'll be down in a moment. Carmen Ortiz. She'll be joined by Vincent Lisi, L-I-S-I. It's pronounced Lisi, Special Agent in charge of the FBI in Boston. Both of them will be speaking. Joining them at the podium will be Watertown Chief Ed DeVoe, D-E-V-E-A-U. Special Agent in charge of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF, Daniel Kumar, K-U-M-O-R. Also joining them will be the acting Special Agent in charge for ICE, Homeland Security, Michael Shea, S-H-E-A. They will not be speaking, but will be available for questions. So they should be here any second. And again, you can direct your questions to anyone you'd like after, okay?
Nothing's happening. Hey, it's Jack. You don't have anything? No, it's not working. Who's your old partner? Oh, shit. No, I have.
Oh, never mind. No, not there. But yes, I'm going out.
As soon as this is over.
Sorry.
Supposedly jurors are talking.
What's that? Sure.
Supposedly. Now?
You're in front?
That's what
Out front?
Boston probably just said that.
Yeah, I need to hear.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to state today that we are all feeling very gratified that we're at this stage of the proceedings where the judge has imposed a sentence in this case. And so we've arrived at the end of another chapter in this long process and in these criminal proceedings. Many of you who listened to what was happening in the courtroom today really was a day not just for the conclusion of this piece of it, but really for the victims to have a voice. And many of them had submitted victim impact statements, but they also had submitted, made oral statements today. And so I just want to say that today was an incredibly powerful day. The judge formally imposed his sentence of the death penalty for certain counts, as well as then consecutive life sentences on other counts. But critically important was the voices that we heard from the victims who talked about the impact of the crime and what they have been through and what this has meant to them. And from the very beginning, and I just recently came from we had a meeting with many of the victims, I noted and I said from the very beginning, I have been so touched and so moved and inspired by their strength, their courage, and their resiliency. And also voices of hope. In that courtroom today, I felt proud that not just to be a Bostonian, but also to be an American, because you heard a number of victims say, not only are we Boston strong, but we are America strong. I hope that the presentation of this case, in terms of viewing all of the evidence, has really exhibited again what a fair and impartial jury system we have in this country. And we believe that at the end of the day, the punishment that was rendered by the jury appropriately fitted the crime. A crime of terrorism, a crime that was not religiously motivated, and a crime that was intended to coerce and intimidate our country. But the response has been otherwise. And finally, I just want to conclude by thanking the FBI, my colleague here, Special Agent in Charge, Vince Lisi, as well as the ATF, State Police, Boston PD, all the other law enforcement agencies that we have worked with from the very beginning. They have worked tirelessly, along with my prosecution team, the assistant U.S. attorneys who presented the case in court and have done tremendous work. And we hope that that was really on display for all to see our system of justice. Thank you, Vince.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. You know, from the moment those bombs detonated on Boylston Street, the victims, survivors, and their families have had to deal with unthinkable pain and overcome countless obstacles. And while there's no one-size-fits-all healing process, I do think that there are certain events that help them move forward from, that horrific day. We all know that there's nothing in the world, nothing at all, that can take away their pain or return things to the way they are or the way they were, including today's sentence. But I hope that today's proceedings can serve as a milestone as they continue in their healing process. And I just want to let everybody know who was impacted by that savage attack that, the FBI family will keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I don't want to venture a personal opinion on this, but in general, what I was struck more was by what he didn't say. He didn't renounce terrorism. He didn't renounce violent extremism. And he couched his comments in line with Allah and Allah's views, which give it a religious tone. And there was nothing, as you heard Judge O'Toole say in the courtroom, there was nothing about this crime that was Islam associated. And so that's what I was struck by more.
How can you say that there was nothing religiously motivated in this crime, given all the references to Allah, to Muhammad, to the Quran? It's been made by him and his brothers throughout this entire deal.
That is a skewed view of the religion of Islam. That is not what Islam is all about. And so when individuals utilize that, it is a radicalized view of that ideology. It's a radical ideology which really isn't at the heart of what is truly a peaceful and loving religion.
Is it true that the defense did offer to have him plead guilty and apologize prior to the start of the trial? That's what Judy Clark admitted.
She mentioned that in court, and I don't want to get into discussions that attorneys have behind the scenes, not only in this, but in many criminal cases. What I will say is that that statement, as it was made in court, was not completely accurate, and it was incomplete.
Was the part about the apology inaccurate?
I really don't want to specify what that comment referred to, really.
Carmen,
It wasn't an apology.
Has this case made the case for cameras in federal courtrooms?
In terms of, would it be more appropriate? I wouldn't want to voice my own personal opinions on cameras in the courtroom. I will say that because of our limitations that we don't have cameras in the courtroom, you all do an amazing job of tweeting the process so that someone outside the courtroom feels as if they're inside the courtroom reading, your messaging in terms of the testimony, the evidence that's being presented. Yeah, it would be best to have a public display, but I'm not speaking for the department right now.
Mr. Lisi, are we safer today than on April 15th, 2013? Or are we in more danger than ever?
No, we're not in more danger than ever. I think, though, what people do see is the concern that we have with, the threats coming from overseas. I mean, those continue to exist, and we continue to chase those down. So, I would say that the FBI just looks at this as yet another reason why we need to make terrorism our top priority, and we can't let up. We're not going to take our foot off the gas pedal.
Is there an after report about this? Will we know exactly where the bombs were made? Will we have an FBI accounting of how the gunpowder was?
No, I think the only thing that's going to be out there is what was introduced in court as evidence. Anything beyond that, no, I don't see a report forthcoming because that would get into speculation, and anything that was evidence that was factual was presented in the courtroom.
Mr. Weinreb,
What's next for Tsarnaev?
Well, what's actually next is their post-trial motions. So those will be considered next. They'll probably file a notice of appeal. There's a certain time frame within which to do it, I believe 14 days after the judge has entered judgment on the sentence. Then after the decisions are made on the motion, the post-trial motions, motion for a new trial, motion to set aside the verdict, or so forth, and I'm sure others, they will then file, it'll enter the appellate process where they will file the brief, and then the government will have an opportunity to respond, and oral arguments will be set, and then the process will go on.
Mr. Weinreb, you know,
Yeah.
some of the survivors who are outside of court just now said that they were disappointed that has to happen, that they have to hear from him again and see him again, that he wouldn't just fade away from this point on and become history. Can you talk to the folks who expressed those feelings?
Sure. I think for those folks who are really concerned about the appellate process, I'd like them to understand that the appellate process is very, very different from the trial process, you know, the jury trial system. It's a written process, so it's really the lawyers filing the briefs and the responses to those briefs. There's one real public proceeding, which is an oral argument, and it's between the parties, the government, and the defense, arguing the appellate issues that occurs in the First Circuit, which is here at the federal courthouse. Usually each side is given 15 minutes, 20 minutes. The issues are lengthier or so as the appellate judges decide, the appellate court rules. And then the appellate judges take time to decide the case and write an opinion, and then the opinion issues. So it's a lengthy written process where there really isn't this kind of opportunity for a lot of public and media presence. So it's very different, and I hope that will bring some degree of comfort to them in terms of the process being different.
Mr. Weinreb, your team never got to question Tsarnaev on the stand. What did you make of him when he had to say in court?
Well, like the U.S. Attorney, I was struck more by what he did not say. It's one thing to apologize or to say that you feel bad about the suffering you caused, but he did this for political reasons. This was a politically motivated act. And at no point during his statement did he renounce the reasons for which he committed this act. He never renounced terrorism. He did not repudiate violent extremism. I think that it's important to keep in mind that this is somebody who was being sentenced to death for the acts that he had taken against specific individuals. He addressed his remarks to those individuals, but we didn't hear a word about the reasons for why he did this crime.
Did you ever think he would take the stand?
Take the stand and testify?
Yeah.
That was something that was entirely up to him and in consultation with his counsel. We were ready for him to take it or not, as he saw fit.
Agent Lisa, can you speak to the incident out front with the man with the meat cleaver and what
Sure.
if any connection it might have to what was going on?
Yeah, he's in BPD custody right now. With today's threat environment, as we mentioned earlier, we can't overlook anything. So we've sent some people from our Joint Terrorism Task Force down to BPD, and they will work with them and try to figure out what, if any, terrorism nexus there might be, if at all.
So at this moment it's unclear.
Yeah, right, it's unclear. Like I said, but in an abundance of caution, we sent our JTTF down to BPD, and we will work closely with them as we have in the past.
Mr. Lisi, you risk that the Bureau's resources so focused on Islamic terrorism and not Islamic terrorism, but perhaps expired terrorism like we've seen in the attack, that we lose sight of the more domestic and right-wing terrorism, such as the South Carolina incident last week?
No, there's no concern. I can tell you that whenever we sit down and we look at our threats and prioritize and decide how we're going to allocate the resources, right, the threats from the domestic side receive just as much attention. So we're not going to divert any resources away from that.
Where is Tsarnaev physically now going to be held now that the sentencing is over? Does he immediately go to a different location, or where is he?
Do you go? Yeah, go ahead.
He will be held in custody and handed over to the Bureau of Prisons, who will take him to an institution where he'll begin serving his sentence, and that will begin right away.
So is he going to Indiana now?
It's up to the Bureau of Prisons where he goes. Eventually, he will go to the institution in Terre Haute. Whether he goes there immediately or whether he goes there after a period of time is up to the Bureau of Prisons, and that's a decision that they make according to their own criteria.
What would be the alternative for now? Where would he be until he goes to Terre
if he doesn't go to Terre Haute immediately, he may go to ADX in Florence for a period of time, as was discussed at the trial.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.